Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Passionately Speaking, our weekly call where we talk about how we can be better speakers and how we can impact the world. And one of the ways people have been impacting the world for many years now is through TED Talks. Yes, and our topic today is the 18-minute masterpiece, how to turn one idea into a talk the world will remember. Now, I was thinking, and I had to do a little research on this because I know TED Talks have been around for a long time, but I didn't really realize that they've been around since 1984. 1984. I mean, I didn't hear about them in 1984 very much, but I heard about them a little bit because I was in the corporate America in the computer information world. And guess what? That's where they started. That was the first conference in 1984, and it was created by a guy named Richard Saul Urman, Wurman. I guess that's Werman or something like that. And he was an architect, graphic artist. He was a real technical guy, and he just wanted to kind of bring people together in different disciplines and share ideas. Share ideas. That's it. Wasn't about speaking. It was about sharing those ideas. So he named it TED Talk. Does anybody know what TED stands for? Do you remember? Okay, TED stands for Technology, Entertainment, and Design. TED. Um, Technology, Entertainment, and Design. And that's the kind of talks and groups that he wanted. And that's how he first started. And his vision was to create this kind of gathering of innovators and creators and artists and scientists and designers and thinkers and all of that and exchange those kind of powerful ideas, he says, quote unquote, worth spreading. Ideas worth spreading. Wouldn't that be great? I mean, we all have ideas, but to embody it in ourselves and say this idea is worth spreading. And that's how we should feel about every speech that we do, that this idea is worth spreading. So, um, okay, so let's see. So when did TED Talks become famous? They didn't really become real famous. Remember, I said I kind of heard about them in the 80s, but they didn't really become famous until the 90s, until 1990 to be exact. And then in 2001, there was a kind of a shift and a big turning point, and that is because um, it, it was acquired by somebody else, okay? It was acquired by a guy named Chris Anderson, and he wanted to take it and instead of kind of technology, he wanted to serve more not-for-profits and he wanted to just bring a little bit more emotion into it and less technical. And he started the TED Talks online, right? He started putting the TED Talks online. He started doing TED Talks for free, right? So people did TED Talks for free and you came and look, watched them and all of that. So he started to open them up to the public in 2001, actually. And today, TED Talks, I mean, it's TED Talks are all over. And it's not just TED Talks. They're TED Talks because they're known to be short now. Now they're known to be, they used to be hours long and be lectures, but one of the things Chris Anderson did is change them to be short. So now it's not that they have to be, but they're known as 18 minutes, 18-minute, like more story like. But you could go over a little bit, the big hammer isn't going to come down. But for the most part, they're kept that way. And there's all different organizations now that do TED Talks. So you hear a lot more of them because there was just that one organization and then Chris took it over and it was one organization. But now there's offsprings and colleges do it. And a lot of times they'll call them TED something. TEDx, right? We've heard that. TEDx or TED this or TED that. You know that they're not the original, but they're kind of some sort of an offshoot. But guess what? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter because all TED Talks you have to audition for. Not just everybody gets to do a TED Talk. You have to audition for a TED Talk, no matter where it is, whether it's for a school, whether it's for a college, whoever's putting it on, they do have auditions. So that's what we're going to talk about today because I want to give you the formula. And guess what? I mean, it's very, very close. I looked up the TED Talk formula. It's exactly my formula. I think they stole it from me, but I'll show you what some of the differences are. All right. Okay. But here's the key. Here's what makes it different. TED Talks are, and I believe this for our speeches, but a lot of times it doesn't always happen because we used to have a long time to speak. So a lot of people put a group of these in their speech, but the TED Talk is only one. It's one clear idea. That's all. Not a bunch of ideas, one clear idea. That's what makes a TED Talk. That's what they're looking for now. And they love rags to riches. Again, most TED Talks nowadays are about people themselves. Maybe someone, had two legs and then they lost a leg, or maybe like the guy with no arms and no legs. He's in the mini TED Talks. It's about rags to riches. It's about adversity to success, to mess to success. So many of them are about that, or they're just learned teachings, how to communicate with people. Now we're seeing a lot of different adversity ones, like about different sexual orientations. One I listened to a while back was this guy that was a guy, and then he went to be a girl, and he talked about the differences in how he was treated as a girl, and he was treated better. He was talking about being treated better when he was a man. If he was a man, people would help him out, get his luggage up there, but as a woman, they wouldn't. Now, it might be that he was because he wasn't that pretty of a woman, because he was a man, I'm not sure. But stuff like that, really different topics, different than 1984 when they talked about technology, entertainment, and design. It's really like anything goes. So let's talk about the formula and then I'll talk about how to do a TED Talk. Now, I've never done a TED Talk. Why? I never made it a goal. It wasn't something I wanted to do. It wasn't something that gave me a feather in my cap or a medal on my ring or something like that. I'd much rather run a marathon or now compete. But if you do, here's how you do it. Not saying you shouldn't. You should. As a speaker, boom. If I thought it would make you get more speaking gigs, I would tell you to do it. A book is what's going to get you more speaking gigs. So if you had one or the other, do a book, right? That's going to open doors and probably leave more of a lasting impression on people that read it and help you to sell your products and services. So one or the other, write a book. Okay, and that's really what I've been focusing on. But there's a place for it. I love it. I encourage everyone to do it. So let's talk a little bit about the formula then. We know it's 18 minutes. We know it's based around one idea. Okay, so those are given. We know that. All right, so now, so the number one is start with one idea worth spreading. Start with one idea that is worth spreading. So when you think about that, and I want you to all jot it down, like one idea worth spreading. For me right now, only because, of where I'm at, I could do a couple ideas. I could do one idea. I could do how to overcome grief. That would be the one idea. And I could talk about that. I could talk about fitness over 70, right? And what that looks like. But one idea that would change somebody's life. In other words, one idea worth spreading. I hope you're thinking that's going to make an impact, right? Something that you learned that and you didn't know, but once you know it, now it's changed lives. It's changed your life, and now it'll change other people's lives. Overcoming any adversity works. And we've all had adversity in our lives. So think about that one idea. All right. Now, one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of TED Talk speakers make is that they have too much to share. They want to talk about everything. They want to teach everything that they know, right? Or work it all in somehow. Mm-mm. One idea. You only have 18 minutes. Okay. Now, one thing to remember though, TED Talk is not an autobiography. It's not about yourself. It's not a resume. It's not a seminar. It's a journey around one, write this word down, transformative idea. It's a journey around one transformative idea. Is it getting clearer now? What maybe you could do a transforming idea, transforming my grief into success, into power, into inspiration, right? Could be the idea. One of the reasons, and I'm telling you this from my heart of hearts, of heart of hearts, of heart of hearts, I did not have an idea for a TED Talk for the longest time. I was in an organization, a women's organization, and they did kind of a copy and they called it Sue Talks. And the Sue stood for something. I don't remember what it is. But since then, the group is no longer around, even though it was for years, because the woman lost her husband who had the group. But I remember telling her, I don't have an idea. I don't have anything like that. I really don't. What am I going to talk about? And that's why I never jumped on it and never jumped on a TED Talk. Now I feel like, yes, it took me this long to really have something an idea that I could use to transform somebody's life, a deeper idea. And that's, managing, fitness, going to fitness and managing my grief or grief to fitness or whatever you want to call it. So sometimes we don't have an idea that we believe strong enough. So we get coaches to help us, or we wait until God gives us that idea. And that's okay. So if you want to do the TED Talk and you're searching, you're not quite sure, you don't quite have it, maybe it's just not time yet. And there's nothing better than a great idea whose time has come, or I say nothing better than a great speech whose time has come. Nothing better than a great book whose time has come. Right? Well, many books in us, but maybe it's not time, you know? Okay. So ask yourself, these are a couple of questions I want you to ask yourself when it comes to the idea now. What do you want the audience to believe or think? What do you want the audience to believe now or think? What would they do differently when you finished your speech? What would they do? Would it change their life? Would it make an impact? Would they stop eating meat and be a vegetarian? Would they stop, drinking alcohol and become sober? I mean, what is the idea? What is it that you want them to do? Number two, what is the one sentence? Now, this is a big one. Remember when I talk about our memorable statement, and I always tell you want it to be memorable. What does that mean? That means remembered, right? Remembered, right? Well, same with TED Talks. What is the one sentence they should remember a year from now? What is the one sentence they should remember a year from now? And that's something you can adopt in your regular speech, even if it's not the memorable statement. Maybe there's something inside of that speech that you're going to say. Maybe you say it more than once so that they remember. Something so profound. Now, something that's in my speech that people remember that is not the memorable statement is when I say, you have a speech that, God, I can't even, it's been so long, I can't even say it anymore. Maybe tell me you know what it is. But I can't even remember my motto.
You
Okay.
can't say it, you can't sell it.
No, that's my memorable statement. But the one, you have a speech that
Speech.
no one else has heard. No, you have a speech that only you can deliver to people that have to hear it from you. Yeah. That is a memorable type of sentence, right? So, what do you have? What do you say that somebody can remember now and long after? All right. So, the best TED Talks are often summarized in one sentence. So, this is number, now that's having said that. So, again, everyone has a message to share that only you can share to people that can only hear it from you. And that message will change somebody's life, their business, or their soul. That sums up the whole purpose of why I'm speaking. So ask yourself what sentence summarizes your entire speech. Number two, open with what? An attention grabber. Some people say it's a hook. Open with an attention grabber that creates curiosity, right? Now, one of the ones we use for our speeches, it grabs their attention because, we have to jolt them out of wherever they're at because typically we're in a business meeting. In a TED Talk, people are there to hear your TED Talk. They're there to be transformed. They're there to drink from the well. They're not there to get business, give business, none of that when you're in those arenas. None of that. They're there to drink from the well, to hopefully get better, to hopefully get some ideas. And that's why they attend, right? So you're opening now. Last meeting we talked about movement, if you remember, and we talked about leaning in. Do you remember? And moving forward to your audience, or leaning in if you're on Zoom. And that is what gets people attention when you lean in, right? So we want to do the same thing, but build curiosity. So we can use the surprising fact. We can use a personal story. We can use our bold statements. We can use our attention grabbers that we do in a speech. But we're not looking so much for someone to raise their hand and say, this is me, right? I need more clients. We're more this time going, it's more introspective because we're going for transformation, not sales. So, what else? And maybe it's a compelling question. Maybe it's just kind of a moment of conflict within them. So, we're going for the interreaction. So, I could say something like, I could start by saying something about 5 years ago. After losing my husband, I walked into the gym to become a bodybuilder, but or not to become a bodybuilder, but to learn how to deal with grief. Now they're surprised, that grab their attention, they're curious, right? They're wondering now what's coming next. I'm leaning in. So it works. It doesn't work for a typical business speech, though, right? Does not work for that. We're doing a different kind of speech, and it's more of the storytelling speech. So it'll work. So, that kind of opening makes people want to know, oh, what's coming next? Where did she go now? What's happening? And it keeps their attention. All right. Number three, build the idea with three memorable points. Three, we're talking about a TED Talk now. We're not talking so much before we talked. If it's 30-minute speech, you could do 3 to 5 minutes of principles, pieces of meat. It's the same concept, but they're ideas, and there's three in the 18 minutes. It's not four, it's not five, it's not one, it's not two, it's three. All right, that's the formula for a TED Talk. Build the idea, the number one idea, with three memorable points. I'm supporting that one idea in the whole 18-minute talk. It's one idea. Now, my idea might be grief, right? Three supporting points. Okay, keep it simple. Simple structure is the strongest. So point number one, the problem. Remember our problem, pain, and suffering? We always want to start with that because that really gets people's kind of attention. We're here to solve a problem. If there's no problem, how can there be transformation? There can't be. Transformation into what? Good and gooder, you know, better and betterer. No, it has to be some sort of a transformation, right? We're heavy and we want to become thin. We're unhealthy, we want to become healthy, all of that. We all know that. We're poor, we want to become rich, so there has to be some sort of transformation. Even in our competitive bodybuilding community. There for women, I don't know if they have it for men, but for women, they have another separate category. And you know what it's called? It's called transformation. And it's for women who were like 300 pounds and then they lost the weight and now they're bikini competitors on stage, right? Now, sure, do they have loose skin and some problems like that? Yeah, but so what? Right? They did the work. They transformed. Oh, I got chills. They transformed. They did something good for themselves and inspired others, and they're there on stage showing a little bit, maybe a flab to inspire others. That's crazy, right? That takes guts. That takes guts and hard work and all of that, but they're doing it not, they did it for them, but then what happens as a result? You inspire others. I never set out to inspire anybody. I only set to live very selfishly. I wanted to live, right? Because I didn't want to live. And then I learned I'm inspiring all these people. I'm like, wow, really? Wow. Just by existing. And that's how Michael was. Just by being the happy man he was, he helped us all. We all loved him. He was just happy. So, point number one, the problem, or maybe it's an old way of thinking, you know? People, think technology is for the birds. I don't know. People think social media, blah, blah, blah. People think there's a lot of AIs now, right? A lot of AI talks now. But whatever it might be, whatever you know that other people don't. What is the misconcept? What is the challenge that exists? Right? The transformation is in the challenge. Point number two, the discovery. Now, it should start sounding familiar, problem, pain, and suffering. We just don't have the pain and suffering. But now, number two, the discovery or new perspective. What is the change? What is the change of idea, the change of heart, the change of thinking? What is the evidence, the research? How are you going to support it? Maybe it's why we should be using AI, or in my case, supporting the grief. How can everyone get over the grief? Because you get endorphins from exercise, blah, 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 blah. Right? Point number three, the application or solution. Right? If you remember my formula, the only thing that's different here is there's not the suffering that's caused from the problem. Right? But we still have the discovery or the benefits, and we have the application or solution. I call it the solution, right? How can the audience now, you want to think, how can this audience, my TED Talk audience, how can they use this solution, right? How can they use this idea, right? The more you adapt it to the audience, the bigger it is for the audience instead of one or two people, of course, the bigger impact you're going to make, right? I can't get up there and talk about competing in a bikini. Who's going to relate to that? But I can get up there and talk about how fitness took me out of grief and how fitness is why I identified that I had breast cancer. And it's fitness that took, I recovered and was on stage and 5 weeks later. That's proof, right? So, application or solution. You can do it through stories, through research, through demonstrations, through examples, through analogies, through humor, through emotion. There's no right or wrong way to demonstrate that the solution, the discovery, and the problem. Whatever fits for your idea, your one topic. Think about the TED stage as where information meets transformation, where information meets transformation, where we're so used to giving information, right? We're right? And information doesn't really do anything, just people go, oh, okay. But think of it one step further. It's the information that will actually transform them. They can use that information to transform them. All right, number 4. Now, this is something very special. I want you to think about it. And this is something you can add to your regular talks as well. You're going to do this. Remember, a TED Talk is 18 minutes. So you're going to do this around minute 12 to 15. And that is create a wow moment. Create a wow moment. So many memorable TED Talks have a moment where the audience says, whew, I've never thought of it. I've never thought of it that way. Have you ever had talking to a friend and then they say, wow, I never thought of it like that? That's a wow moment. That's when you go zip and be quiet and let them have that moment. Let it go inside. You don't have to say anything or talk them out of it or pull them out of that moment. Let them have that moment where they go, wow, I never thought of it like that. Let it sink in for them. Keep your mouth shut. You've done your job already. You don't need to keep talking. Now, I'm not talking about on stage. I'm talking about when you're with a friend and they're saying that. Let it sink in. But at the same token, you want to do that to your audience, and that's called a pause, right? We call it a pause, and you let the audience, you have that wow moment. You can feel it. Let the audience have it by being quiet. Let it steal in, let it sink in, let it percolate, marinate. Now, many of you have heard me say that story about the 3 gods, and I won't go into it, but the very last line in the story, remember the gods were trying to hide knowledge from man, and the other 2 gods said, here, 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 and they said no. And then the last god said, I know, let's hide it here. For man will never look for it there. And then you just wait and let the audience sink in and be in that moment. That's what I'm talking about. Most speakers, many speakers, they never let something important sink in the audience just to feel it. That's what'll make it memorable too, is when the audience can feel it. Okay? All right, so all of that, it can be a revelation, it can be a demonstration, it can be something visual, it can be something personal realization. Again, when I say example, I'm talking about you could just do a verbal example so they can see it in their head. I'm not talking about giving them a picture or anything. Just do it, tell them, imagine life is like this, right? Imagine life was like this, and then imagine life is like that. That's powerful enough. And then just be quiet, be silent. All right, number 5, and the final one, number 5, and this is again, and I always say end with an attention grabber, but this is like ending, yes, with an attention grabber, but right before the attention grabber, because we don't have to say things like in my formula where I say thank you to the audience, but we don't, no, not in a TED Talk, not at all. We only have 18 minutes. We don't do all that stuff. We don't say thank you in the beginning. Thank you for having me. No, that's not a TED Talk. You didn't hear that in the formula. And we don't do it at the end either. You just boom, give them your idea. It's a TED Talk. It's different. We're not in a small little group at a networking meeting. And we're not a big group at a network meeting or a conference. This is different. It's a TED Talk conference. So now we don't say thank you. We don't let them know that's all, folks, because it's a waste of time. But instead, right, end with new possibilities. for them and their transformation. End with new possibilities. So we never say thank you. We never say in conclusion. By the way, that's so old. I don't ever, I'm going to bop you upside your head if I ever hear you say that word in conclusion, right? I'll come out, I'll drive to Sacramento, Lawana, if I ever hear you say that. But no in conclusion, no summary of points. That's old Toastmasters. You're not a Toastmaster, right? Blah, 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 blah. No, all it is possibility. So what is possibilities? You could do something like um, uh, let me give you an example. Okay, so maybe you could say something like the greatest transformations will begin in life. The don't begin when life is easy. They begin the moment we decide that our pain will become our purpose. That's how we end, and we leave it. We leave it, and then we bow or whatever. We don't say thank you, and then we leave them with that thought. Tommy, you have many of these in your book, many of them that just kind of leave you deep in thought and go, wow. You want your audience just to go, wow, right? And just be thinking and watch you go off, right? So you let them know you're done by the mouth stops talking, right? Something my mouth very seldom does, but every once in a while it does. But you stop talking, take a little bow, and walk off the stage. They'll know you're done and they'll clap. You don't have to say thank you. Just leave them with that profound thought. And it can be more than the attention grabber, which we want as a hook when we're in business. We want that little hook. We want people to remember us by the hook. This is not that. This is a bigger gift that we're giving them. Okay? Now, is that clear with everybody? Everybody's got the formula. I'm going to give you a little checklist now. It's a little checklist that you can, if you're going to do a TED Talk, because you never know. You could be asked to do a TED Talk. You can look for them. If you ever want to do a TED Talk, just go online, look for them. And then again, you'll audition, you'll send. And unfortunately, they really like you to write out the entire talk. I don't know why, but they do. And they often have TED Talk coaches that will coach you, but of course you pay for them. All right? You do that. So sometimes, like just getting on a stage isn't as easy as it might look. You have to go through a few channels to do that. Okay, but it's up to you if that's your goal. All right, so here's a checklist before stepping on stage. These are for you. You want to ask yourself, can I explain my talk in one question, in one sentence? Remember that profound sentence we want. Do I have a clear opening hook? They like to call a hook. I don't like that word, but do I have a clear opening? Does every story support my one idea? TED Talks are just really one big massive story or multiple stories supporting one point. Is there a moment of surprise or insight? And then does the ending, this is the key, does the ending leave my audience changed or transformed? Now, before you ever did a TED Talk, I would go and listen to a few. Go and listen to a few TED Talks, different topics. Some are good, some aren't so good. All right? And remember, the 18-minute TED Talk is not a speech that has been shortened. So you do not use one of your existing speeches. It is not that. It is a single idea that has been distilled and used for transformation or transforming your audience. Very different. Okay. Now, I'd recommend any of you to go. Feel free, go online, look up some TED Talks. You know the formula now, you know the basic. If that's something you want to do, more power to you. I encourage you to do that. You can put that on your resume, just like you do international speaker. You can put TED Talk speaker. I just want you to know it's not as easy as it sounds. But now you've got the formula and now you've got some ammunition. Go do your research, listen to some TED Talks, think about and pray about your own topic, whether or not that's something that's going to transform. Where do you have to go to do the TED Talk? Do you have to hire their coaches to do it? Is there going to be extra expense besides traveling? All of that. Look into it, do some research. It's not as easy as just going down to your chamber office and getting a speech at the chamber. There's a lot more involved in it. But again, if it's a goal of yours, then go to it. If you need coaching, let me know. But this isn't about that. It's just I'm here to help you, even if I haven't done one. I've coached a lot of people doing TED Talks. I've coached a lot of Toastmasters doing contest talks, and brought some winners. So it's yes, Karina, Katrina, yeah. You're muted.
Could you
Yeah.
repeat number three?
What? Number
Could you
three?
repeat number three? Does my
Yeah.
story?
Yes. Number three, let me see. Number point three is the solution. How can your audience use your idea,
Hmm.
right? The application or the solution. So how can they use it? Does it affect them and how can they use that? Mhm.
Okay, I
And
had
what was point two?
Point two is the discovery or new perspective. Like what changed your thinking? This is your own transformation, right? What changed your thinking? What evidence do you have? So, for example, um, what changed my thinking in terms of my grief and not wanting to go out into the street and get hit by a car was watching the YouTube channel and seeing an 85-year-old bodybuilder killing it on stage. And then I thought, I could do that. I can do that too.
what is the last five that you gave?
The last what?
Was that the last five that you gave? I don't have any of those. If so, then what can I explain my talk in one sentence? Do I have a clear opening
Oh,
hook? And then the
yeah.
third one?
Questions to ask yourself. Does does every story support your idea? Remember, it's one idea, so just start with that. Does everything support it?
Mhm.
That's number three. Four is there a moment of surprise within it?
Mhm.
Something happened that, surprised the audience mainly, not you, not your own surprise. And does the ending leave the audience changed or transformed in some way?
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Tommy, did you have a question?
So the checklist is, again, can I explain my talk in one sentence? Do I have a
Right,
clear opening?
right.
Is there a moment of surprise?
Does every story support one idea? Then the next one is there a moment of surprise or insight?
Okay.
I would say there is a moment of surprise just hearing your story. When you reveal your big secret, that's a surprise. What? I would never imagine that, right? Um, there is a moment of surprise when you talk about the hospital and when you ask the woman, her nurse, her name. That was an element of surprise, right? You've got a couple. Yeah, I mean that I love that story. That is, phew. I cry every time I hear it. I cry every time I hear it. And here's what's interesting. I know it's in the book, but when you tell it, is when it moves me, not when I read it.
Mm.
You know, some people they can read things and that moves them, but no, it's when you tell it that it's powerful
Mm.
and moves my heart. Yeah. Yeah. Just how you tell it and your own emotion that goes into it. And yeah, stuff you just can't write about. So that's why we always want to speak our book, right? We want to write the book, but we also want to speak it like you're doing, just like you're doing. I like your beard, Tommy. It looks like it even grew since this morning. I didn't notice it as big that it was as big this morning.
Mm.
I like it. You know, I'm a beard girl. At Michael's funeral, when they took him in, of course, they're like, "Should we shave his beard?" And I'm like, "No, for 20 years I've never seen him without a beard. I don't want I don't want to see it. You know, leave it on." Why would they ask that question? I don't know. I wouldn't have recognized him if he didn't have a beard. Funny, huh?
Mhm.
All right. Any other questions? Did you like this talk? Did you like it topic? All
Mhm.
right. So who wants to do a TED Talk? Any TED Talkers? It's a lot, huh? Well, now you know how if you ever do. Like I say, it took me years to even have a topic for a TED Talk. And now I feel I do. So I might take it on. Um, but yeah, very, very different from a regular speech. But you can do it. All of you can do it. You're ready now. It's an advanced type of speech.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right. Okay, then I'll leave you with all of that knowledge just to kind of percolate and go deep into your heart. So thank you again for being here with me tonight, and we'll see you again next week. All
Thank
right.
you, Arvee.
Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye,
You're
everybody.
welcome. Bye,
Bye.
Colleen.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.